Park. My name is Cole, and it's my pleasure to talk to you all today about our manatees. Now, before we get into this chat, I would like to remind all my friends up here on the top deck, please make sure you keep all human items on the human side of the railing, and I'll make sure our manatees keep all their items on their side of the railing. Now, here at Gulfarium, we do have 3 Florida manatees: Little Joe, Inigo, and Romeo. Florida manatees are a subspecies of the West Indian manatee. They're in the order Sirenia. Other Sirenians include Amazonian manatees, African manatees, dugongs, as well as the extinct stellar sea cow. Now, before going into the broad aspects about manatees, I do want to give you a brief history on each of the individual manatees that we have with us here at Gulfarium, starting with Little Joe. Little Joe was first rescued in 1981 off the coast of Daytona Beach as a calf weighing only 49 pounds. After around 20 years of rehabilitation and now weighing 1,900 pounds, Little Joe was determined to be a candidate for release. So he was released into northeast Florida into the St. Johns River. However, unfortunately, he would need another rescue. This time it was due to cold stress. Cold stress is something that can happen to manatees anytime their water temperature is below 68 degrees. What happens is it weakens their immune system, making them more susceptible to disease, and it also lowers their appetite, making them more inclined to starvation. So Little Joe was rescued from this cold stress, rehabilitated, and then once again released. However, unfortunately, Little Joe would need yet another rescue just a couple days later. This time he was found severely underweight and it appeared he had not eaten since his last release. In fact, his stomach was full of trash such as ropes and rags. So he was rescued, and this time the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service stepped in and determined that he was not a candidate for release. Now, that brings us to Inigo. Inigo has a very similar story to Little Joe, except is much younger. While Little Joe is around 34 years old, Inigo is only around 8. Inigo was first rescued off Merritt Island in 2021 down by Port Canaveral. This was due to harmful algal bloom in the area. Harmful algal blooms can have neurological effects on manatees, so he was rescued, rehabilitated, and then released. However, unfortunately, he would need another rescue. This time he was found with uncharacteristic swimming patterns such as circling and staying at the surface. This is actually because Inigo was struck by a boat. So Inigo was rescued, rehabilitated, and then released. However, unfortunately, much like Little Joe, Inigo would need a third rescue, and so the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service stepped in and determined that he was not a candidate for release. Now that brings us to Romeo. Romeo is our newest resident that we have here at Gulfarium. He joined us in May of 2025, and he is actually over 70 years old, making him the oldest manatee in human care. Now we're so grateful to have all 3 of our Florida manatees with us here at Gulfarium. Now, Florida manatees do have quite a widespread range, especially in those summer months. During those summer months, you can find them as far west as Texas, and some manatees have even been found as far north as Massachusetts. Wow. They are going to prefer any of those low, shallow, slow-moving water habitats, whether that be bays, estuaries, rivers, or even canals. Now, it's during those winter months that you mainly find Florida manatees here in those Florida rivers. That's because of that cold stress that I mentioned earlier. While during those winter months, water temperatures all around the country are dropping below 68 degrees, the Florida springs provide a perfect habitat for manatees because they stay a nice crisp 72 degrees all year long. That's why if you go down to places like Crystal River during those winter months, you can find manatees by the hundreds and sometimes even by the thousands. Now manatees, as you can see, they are quite large. To get that large, you do got to eat a lot of food. On average, manatees are between 950 to 1,200 pounds, but it's not uncommon to see them get well above 2,000 pounds. Now, to get that big, they are eating a lot. They'll eat between 4 to 15% of their body weight, and that works out to around 100 pounds of food each and every day. To eat 100 pounds of food, it does take time. A manatee can actually spend just 8 hours in a day only eating. Now that much eating does put some wear and tear on the teeth, so they have a very unique adaptation. This adaptation is known as marching molars. The way that it works is as the teeth in the front wear down and fall out, new teeth are formed in the back that push the entire line forward, thus the name marching molars. Now something else that's unique about manatees is their lungs. Manatees, they have very large lungs. A manatee is on average 9 to 10 feet long, is actually 3/4 the length of that body. So that works out to around a 7-foot lung. And they have something that's known as a hemidiaphragm. We as humans, we have one diaphragm, one chest cavity, that both of our lungs sit in. But manatees, they actually have 2 separate chest cavities, one for each lung. And on a single breath, a manatee can replace up to 90% of the air in that lung. For contrast, we as humans, we're only replacing around 10%.
Wow.
All that works out to allow manatees to stay underwater for up to 20 minutes at a time when resting. However, it's not uncommon to see them surface every 3 to 4 minutes. Now, manatees can live for quite a while. Inigo is 8, Little Joe is 34, and as I mentioned, Romeo is over 70. However, the FWC has found something concerning. We are not finding a lot of manatees over the age of 30 in their natural environment. This is especially concerning for an animal that has no natural predators. While they do live around sharks and alligators, they aren't preyed upon by them. All the main causes of death for manatees are human-related, whether that be getting struck by boats, trapped in fishing gear, caught in between flood canals, and then they still have to worry about sickness and starvation. Now, I do have some good news. Not long ago, it was thought that there was only around 1,000 manatees left, but it's now believed that that number is upwards of 6,000. But not out of the woods yet. Just a few short years ago, over 1,100 manatees died in a single calendar year. So there's still a lot of work to be done for your conservation. If you want to know what you can do to help out, you can always check our website, www.gulfarium.com/conservation. Now, rescue efforts for manatees really began in the 1950s, and since the 1970s, over 1,800 manatees have been sent to critical care facilities. As it became clear that this was a species that would strain themselves when they were in need of assistance, different organizations came together to better cooperate on these rescue efforts. This organization would go on to form the Manatee Rescue and Rehabilitation Partnership, or MRP. Gulfarium is proud to announce that we obtained our MRP membership in 2023, and now we are a facility that these wonderful animals can call home. Inigo, Little Joe, and Romeo serve as ambassadors of their species to residents all over the west coast of Florida. Now they bring us to about the end of this chat, but I do want to leave you all with one more fun fact. Manatees, they can actually move both of their lips independently, and that's what's going to help rip that seagrass right out of the ground and bring it into their mouth. Now, I do want to thank you all so much for listening. If you are up here on our top deck, we are going to be closing it in just a few short minutes at 11:45. But feel free to continue observing our manatees from the first and second floor. My name is Roland.